She thought it was just another day, another chance to prove herself. But when she stepped into the ring, it wasn't just about boxing anymore. It was about her dignity, her race, and her very worth as a human being. The crowd roared, not in support, but in cruel anticipation. An arrogant fighter across from her smirked, convinced he could turn her into nothing more than a spectacle. But what happened next shook everyone to their core. Would this young girl break under the weight of hate or rise stronger than anyone imagined?
Before the roar of the crowd, before the harsh glare of the arena lights, there was just a girl with big dreams. Her name was Amara, a 16-year-old from a small neighborhood where cracked sidewalks and faded walls told stories of struggle, but also of resilience. She wasn't wealthy, and her family didn't own much, but what they lacked in possessions, they made up for in love. Her mother worked 2 jobs, one at a diner, one at a laundromat, while her father spent long hours fixing cars. They believed in her, even when the world tried to tell them their daughter didn't belong. Amara found her sanctuary in boxing. The gym wasn't polished or filled with shiny equipment, but it was hers. The faint smell of sweat, the steady thud of gloves hitting heavy bags, the squeak of sneakers on worn-out mats. This was where she came alive. Every punch she threw carried the weight of her hopes, to rise above the limits society placed on her, to prove that talent knew no color, no gender. In her community, she was already a hero. Neighbors would stop her on the way to the gym, encouraging her with warm smiles and hopeful words. Kids watched her train, mimicking her moves with playful laughter, pretending they were champions just like her. To them, Amara wasn't just a fighter. She was proof that dreams could grow even in the hardest soil. But beyond the neighborhood, the world wasn't as kind. Whispers followed her when she entered competitions. She doesn't belong here. It's just a phase. Some dismissed her as a novelty. Others laughed at the idea that a young black girl could stand toe-to-toe with seasoned athletes. Yet every sneer only pushed her harder. She trained longer, ran faster, fought smarter. Every scar and bruise was a silent reminder that she would not be broken. And then came the invitation, the chance to step into a bigger arena, a competition broadcast to thousands. To Amara, it felt like the universe was opening a door she had only dreamed about. Her family celebrated with a small dinner that night, her mom serving her favorite meal of rice and peas, her father raising a glass of soda in a proud toast. She felt unstoppable, like all the sacrifices, all the sweat had finally led her to this moment. But what she didn't know was that her triumph was about to be tested in a way she had never faced before. The stage she longed for wasn't just a battleground for skill, it would become a battlefield of prejudice. Behind the bright lights and cheering audience hid a cruel plan, one designed not to test her ability, but to humiliate her. As she lay awake the night before the fight, staring at the ceiling of her small bedroom, excitement kept her restless. She imagined the crowd chanting her name, the sound of the bell, the glory of raising her fists in victory. Yet deep down, a flicker of unease whispered through her chest. She couldn't name it, but something felt off, as if the path ahead carried shadows she wasn't ready to face. She would soon learn that not every fight is fought with gloves. Some battles are far more personal, far more painful, and this one would change her life forever.
The day of the competition arrived, and Amara felt electricity coursing through her veins. She woke before dawn, laced up her worn sneakers, and went for a jog through the quiet streets, the cool morning air filling her lungs. She whispered encouragements to herself with every step. "You've earned this. You belong here." By the time she entered the arena, the air was thick with the energy of the crowd. The stadium lights glared down, making the ring shine like a stage in a theater. She could hear the hum of voices, laughter, the rustle of banners waving. At first, she tried to absorb the moment, letting it energize her. But as her eyes scanned the audience, she caught sight of mocking stares, heard faint chuckles that weren't the sound of support. Then she saw her opponent, Victoria Viper Kane, a decorated fighter from the USA. Taller, stronger, and clearly favored by the organizers, she carried herself with the arrogance of someone who believed the match was already decided. Victoria smirked the moment her gaze met Amara's, her eyes filled with condescension. When she stepped forward during introductions, her words dripped with venom, loud enough for those nearby to hear. "This won't take long." The announcer's voice boomed across the speakers, but the cheers that followed were one-sided. The crowd roared for Victoria, waving American flags, chanting her name like she was a queen. In contrast, Amara's name was barely acknowledged, swallowed up by murmurs and dismissive laughter. Each sound felt like a dagger, reminding her she was an outsider here. The bell rang. The first round began. Amara moved with precision, her training evident in every step. She dodged, jabbed, countered. Her rhythm was sharp, her reflexes honed. For a moment, she could almost forget the hatred in the air. But then something unexpected happened. Every time Amara landed a punch, the referee hesitated, glancing at Victoria, almost as if waiting for permission to call it fair. And when Victoria's glove grazed Amara, the referee exaggerated, declaring it a clean strike. By the second round, it was clear. The fight was rigged. The referee docked Amara points for illegal moves that didn't exist, ignored blatant fouls from Victoria, and scolded her as if she was the one breaking rules. The audience jeered louder with every so-called mistake, feeding off the spectacle. Amara's chest tightened, not from fatigue, but from the crushing weight of injustice. She had worked too hard, sacrificed too much, only to realize she wasn't here to compete, she was here to be humiliated. This wasn't about skill, this was about reminding her where they thought she belonged, beneath them. Her gloves shook as she adjusted them between rounds, her mind racing. She could hear whispers from the commentators. "She's out of her depth. What did she expect?" The words pressed into her ears like poison. She glanced at her corner, where her coach and parents shouted encouragement, their voices nearly drowned by the crowd. She clung to them, desperate to believe that she wasn't alone. Round 3 was brutal. Victoria came out swinging, her blows heavy and merciless, fueled by arrogance and cruelty. At one point, she shoved Amara back after the bell rang, but instead of being penalized, the referee laughed it off. The audience erupted in applause. Amara staggered, her body aching, her spirit cracking under the weight of it all. And yet, through the pain, something fierce burned inside her. She thought of her neighborhood kids, copying her punches with joy. She thought of her mother's weary hands serving her dinner, her father's grease-stained palms lifting his glass in pride. She thought of every sneer, every whispered, "You don't belong." And that flame grew hotter. By round 4, Amara was no longer just fighting Victoria. She was fighting the system, the prejudice, the very idea that her worth could be diminished. Each jab, each dodge became defiance. She refused to crumble, not for them, not for anyone. But then it happened. Midway through the round, Victoria landed a crushing hook to Amara's jaw, sending her sprawling onto the canvas. The crowd erupted in wild cheers, some standing to clap as if they had just witnessed the public execution. The referee's count echoed like a death knell. 1, 2, 3. Amara's head pounded, her vision blurred, the world tilted. For a fleeting second, defeat whispered in her ear, "Stay down, it's over." But then she saw it. Her mother in the crowd, hands clasped, eyes wide with tears. Her father shouting her name until his voice cracked. The kids who had come to cheer her on, clutching handmade signs with shaky handwriting. "Go, Amara!" The referee's count climbed higher. 6, 7, 8. Her chest heaved, her body screamed in pain, but her spirit refused.
With trembling arms, she pressed against the canvas, forcing herself upward. Her legs wobbled, her jaw throbbed, but she stood tall, defiance burning in her eyes. The crowd gasped, some in shock, others in anger. Even Victoria's smirk faltered for a moment. And as the bell rang to end the round, the stadium buzzed with unease. The humiliation they had planned wasn't unfolding the way they wanted. Amara wasn't broken. She was still standing.
The arena pulsed with noise, a storm of voices crashing down on Amara as she stumbled back to her corner. Her body throbbed, bruises spreading like dark blossoms across her skin. But it was her spirit that carried the heavier weight. Every jeer, every mocking laugh from the stands pressed against her chest like a suffocating grip. Her coach leaned in close, towel in hand, whispering fiercely, "Don't let them take this from you. You're stronger than their hate." His words steadied her breathing, but Amara knew she was standing on the edge of something far greater than a boxing match. The bell rang again. Victoria surged forward with renewed cruelty, her fists like hammers, each swing fueled not by competition, but by the hunger to destroy. She shoved Amara into the ropes, sneering as she landed blow after blow. The referee watched silently, refusing to intervene. The injustice hung in the air so thick it was almost visible, like smoke choking every breath. Amara's knees wavered. For a moment, the thought of surrender returned, whispering seductively that no one would blame her for walking away. She was outnumbered. Opponent, referee, crowd, even the organizers, all united against her. It wasn't just a fight, it was an ambush. Then, as Victoria raised her glove for what looked like the finishing strike, Amara's eyes locked on something beyond the ropes. A little girl sat in the front row, clutching a handmade sign with glittery letters, "Fight like a queen, Amara." Her eyes were wide, filled with pure admiration, untainted by hate. In that instant, everything shifted. Amara wasn't fighting for herself anymore. She was fighting for every child told they were too small, too different, too powerless. She was fighting for every voice silenced, every dream denied. With a roar deep from her chest, she ducked under Victoria's hook, her body moving with a precision born from years of sacrifice. She countered with a flurry of punches, 1, 2, 3, that landed cleanly across Victoria's face. The crowd gasped. For the first time, the arrogant smirk faltered, replaced by shock. But the referee still refused to call the strikes. He waved his arms, pretending the blows hadn't landed, his bias laid bare for the world to see. The audience split. Some screamed in outrage, others cheered the injustice. The noise swelled to a deafening crescendo. Victoria, enraged, came at Amara with reckless fury, but Amara had found her rhythm again. She weaved, she dodged, her body a storm of movement. Each time she connected, she felt the years of oppression cracking piece by piece. Every punch became a message. I belong. I matter. You cannot break me. By the final round, the fight no longer looked like an easy spectacle. It had turned into a war, one girl against a machine designed to crush her. Sweat and blood blurred her vision, but her spirit blazed brighter than ever. Then came the moment. Victoria lunged forward with a devastating uppercut aimed to end everything. Time seemed to slow. The crowd held its breath. Amara pivoted, her body moving on instinct. She delivered a counterpunch, sharp, precise, unstoppable. The sound of impact echoed across the arena as Victoria's head snapped back. Her body staggered, then collapsed onto the canvas with a thunderous crash. For a heartbeat, the stadium was silent, absolute silence. Then chaos erupted. Some screamed in outrage, others in awe. The referee hesitated, disbelief etched across his face. He started the count, his voice trembling. 1, 2, 3. Victoria lay sprawled, struggling to rise, her arrogance shattered, her composure gone.
Amara stood in the center of the ring, chest heaving, fists clenched, eyes blazing not with victory, but with defiance. 7, 8, 9. The crowd's noise reached a fever pitch. Some chanted Amara's name now, voices breaking through the wall of hate, while others shouted for the referee to stop. 10. The referee's hand dropped. The fight was over. But instead of raising Amara's hand, he froze. Whispers rushed through the crowd as the officials huddled, their expressions twisted with unease. They had never expected her to win. This wasn't the script they had written. And then came the announcement that shocked everyone. Due to technicalities, the match is declared invalid. No winner. Gasps, shouts, boos. The injustice rang louder than the bell itself. They had robbed her, not of the fight, but of the recognition she had earned with every drop of sweat, every bruise, every ounce of willpower. Amara's fists lowered slowly. She stared at the officials, at the crowd, at the unconscious body of Victoria, still on the canvas. Fury and pain swirled in her chest, but beneath it all, a deeper truth settled. She hadn't just fought a boxer, she had fought racism itself. And though the system tried to deny her victory, everyone watching had seen the truth with their own eyes. The world would not forget this moment. And as Amara raised her chin, her glare piercing through the stadium, the question that lingered was not whether she had won the match, but whether this was the beginning of something far bigger than anyone had ever imagined.
The crowd was still buzzing with confusion, outrage, and disbelief. Amara stood in the center of the ring, her chest heaving, her gloves heavy at her sides. Sweat dripped from her brow, and bruises painted her body, but her spirit blazed brighter than ever. Round her, officials whispered frantically, scrambling to justify what everyone had just seen with their own eyes. They had declared the fight invalid, but no ruling could erase the truth. She had stood against everything, the bias, the ridicule, the cruelty, and she had not broken. Her parents rushed toward her, pushing through the chaos. Her mother's arms wrapped around her tightly, trembling with both pride and heartbreak. Her father's voice cracked as he whispered, "You did it, baby. They can't take this away from you. Not really." The arena's noise swirled into a storm of mixed voices. Some jeered, insisting the ruling was fair. Others booed loudly, their anger rising against the injustice. But then, scattered throughout the crowd, small chants began to rise, at first soft, then stronger, echoing through the stadium. Amara, Amara, Amara. It was a sound that pierced the walls built against her, a sound that no referee or official could silence. For the first time that night, she realized something important. Victory wasn't always written on scorecards. Sometimes, victory was in the hearts she moved, in the courage she showed, in the truth that could no longer be hidden. As she left the ring, bruised but unbroken, the cameras followed her. Social media exploded within hours. Clips of the fight flooded timelines, showing every unfair call, every moment of bias, every strike she landed with brilliance, only to have it dismissed. Hashtags trended. Voices across the globe spoke her name, demanding answers, demanding justice. The organizers tried to bury the controversy, but it was too late. The world had seen. What was meant to be her humiliation became their exposure. Their prejudice was laid bare, undeniable to anyone with eyes and ears. For Amara, the impact went beyond headlines. She returned home to her neighborhood, and when she stepped into her old gym, she wasn't just a fighter anymore. She was a symbol. Children who once copied her punches with laughter now looked at her with awe, their eyes shining with possibility. Parents told her she gave their kids hope, proof that the system could try to break them, but it could not define them. Yet beneath the celebration lingered a sobering truth. Her story was not unique. The injustice she faced in that ring mirrored the injustices people of color faced every day, at work, in schools, in public spaces. How many others had been silenced without cameras to capture it? How many had fought invisible battles against bias and lost, their victories stolen before they could even begin? Her fight became a metaphor, a mirror held up to society. The ring was the world, its broken systems, its opponent, its prejudice, and Amara, the embodiment of resilience against them all. She had lost the official decision, but she had won something greater. She had sparked a conversation, ignited a movement. But yet the question remained, why should anyone have to fight so hard just to be seen as equal? Why must courage be tested in the face of cruelty instead of celebrated in the light of fairness? Amara's story reminds us that racism doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it hides in the rules, in the silence of those who look away, in the decisions made behind closed doors. It thrives when people accept it as just the way things are. But it cracks, it falters when even one person stands, refuses to bow, and demands the world to look. As the days turned to weeks, Amara's bruises faded, but her impact grew. She was invited to speak at schools, to tell her story on television, to inspire those who had felt invisible. She used her platform not to glorify her pain, but to give voice to others. She told young girls that their worth wasn't defined by what others allowed, but what they believed in themselves. She told young boys that strength was not about domination, but about justice. She told communities that silence was complicity. Her name became more than a name. It became a rallying cry, not because she had been undefeated in the ring, but because she had been undefeated in spirit. And that's the lesson her story leaves us with. Racism may try to bend rules, tilt scales, and silence victories, but it cannot erase truth. It cannot destroy courage. It cannot stop the fire of a heart that refuses to bow. So now the question is for us, those who hear her story, who feel the weight of her struggle. Will we stand by and watch as injustice rigs the fight? Or will we too rise, fists clenched, not in violence, but in solidarity, in courage, in unshakable defiance? Because the fight is not just hers. The fight belongs to us all. And perhaps the most powerful victory we can claim is this: refusing to let the world look away.